The reckoning of Adrian Hawthorne. The coincidence of destiny. The child who stopped the world. Adrian Hawthorne didn't believe in ghosts, only in control. Yet, the Metropolitan Gallery in London felt haunted. He was halfway through a sterile conversation with a venture capitalist. Another forced smile. Another tax-deductible night. When a flash of movement seized his attention across the crowded hall. A woman stood by the marble staircase, and the child clutching her hand laughed. A sound so unfiltered and full of life, it shattered the gilded silence of his scripted existence. The woman was Sophia. He hadn't seen her in 4 years, not since the night she walked out, offering only a devastating silence where a storm of rage should have been. As he watched her, the child turned, and their eyes met. The little girl's eyes were the exact shade of crystalline blue as his own. His heart, a tightly calculated machine for decades, seized. He took a single, unsteady step toward the woman he'd betrayed, realizing with chilling clarity that his meticulously controlled life was about to be obliterated by a coincidence named Clara. The controlled chaos. Adrian Hawthorne, a notorious figure in London's financial technology sector, was a man whose entire universe was built on algorithms and predictable outcomes. At 38 years old, he was the ruthless CEO of Hawthorne Capital, a man who believed love was a variable that could wait while he conquered his empire. He'd arrived at the prestigious Metropolitan Art Gala, expecting business as usual. Instead, he found Sophia Sterling. He remembered the night she left. She'd looked at him, not with fury, but with a quiet devastation that was infinitely worse. "You were with her," she'd simply said, referring to the distraction he'd sought while building his early empire. Then, she walked out. He was too paralyzed by guilt and arrogance to follow. He thought the silence would fade. He was wrong. Now, she stood there. Her dark hair was longer, pulled back from a face that looked slightly smaller, as if life had demanded too much. But her eyes, that stormy, crystalline blue, were unchanged. And then there was the girl. The chilling familiarity of the child's gaze, the serious observational tilt of her head, and those eyes, his eyes, locked Adrian in place. He started toward them, pulse racing, but Sophia saw him first. Her body instantly tensed, and she instinctively pulled the girl closer, looking at him like a prepared threat. He stopped, throat dry, struggling for a non-rehearsed word. "Adrian." Sophia's voice was quiet, flat, and perfectly guarded. "It has been a long time. I didn't expect to see you here." She tilted her head slightly. "I'm sure you didn't." Her eyes flickered to the child, but before he could form the question that was tearing his gut apart, Sophia cut him off. "No," she stated, sharp and absolute. "She is not yours." The phrase hit him like a physical blow. He stood blinking, momentarily deafened by the word. "Whatever you are thinking, don't. You don't have the right to ask. You lost that right a long time ago. Good night, Adrian." And then she turned. No drama, no scene. Just her retreating figure and the soft click of the girl's shoes on the marble floor as they vanished. Adrian was left frozen, his calculated world shattered by a 4-word denial and a pair of blue eyes. He felt regret. He felt loss. And for the first time in years, he felt the terrifying tremor of hope. The instinct of loss. The days following the gala were a blur of meetings and meaningless talk. But nothing silenced the image of Sophia and the girl, Clara. Adrian tried to convince himself to let it go. She made her choice. She left. But he couldn't shake the unsettling instinct. He wasn't just thinking of Sophia. He was thinking of the child. That quiet intensity. The undeniable familiarity that screamed at his core. Driven by a fear deeper than any business failure, Adrian made a move he hadn't made in years. He went home early, and looked through old photos. Then he called Marcus, an old mutual friend. Marcus was hesitant, but eventually gave him the cold truth. Yes, Sophia's been through it. Single mom. Tough as nails. She's working as a nurse now. It's hard work, but she's doing well. Her daughter is Clara. That name, Clara, resonated deep within him. That night, Adrian drove to a quiet clinic near the city's edge where Marcus said Sophia worked. He hated himself for the intrusion, but he had to see. He waited until closing. Sophia emerged in pale medical scrubs, her hair tied back in a tired bun. She looked exhausted. Real. Human. Seconds later, Clara burst out of the staff entrance, clutching an older woman's hand. Clara ran into Sophia's arms, giggling, and Sophia smiled. A genuine, soft smile that Adrian hadn't seen in a lifetime. It was then he realized his deepest fear. Not that the child wasn't his, but that she was. That Sophia had raised her alone. That he had missed 4 years. The first steps, the first words, the scraped knees, and the bedtime stories. The crushing reality of that lost time tore a physical hole in his chest. The negotiation in the wind. The next morning, Adrian found a quiet coffee shop near the clinic and waited. When Sophia walked in with Clara, he rose. She froze. "What are you doing here, Adrian?" she asked, her voice low but firm. "I'm not here to fight," he said, raising a hand slightly. I need to talk. I need the truth. You already heard it." "I don't think I did," he said softly. "And I don't think you believe it either." Before the tension could escalate, Clara pulled Sophia's hand, asking for a muffin. "Fine," Sophia finally conceded. 10 minutes, not here." They walked outside into the biting wind, Clara munching on a warm muffin. "Why did you lie?" Adrian's voice was hoarse. "Because you made your choice once," Sophia said, her eyes fixed forward. "I wasn't going to give you the chance to walk away again." Adrian swallowed hard. "You're right. I made a mistake. The biggest one of my life. But I am not walking away now." Sophia's eyes were weary but fixed on him. "It's not just about me anymore. You can't just appear and expect a door to open." "I expect nothing," he said. "But I will keep showing up anyway." And with that, she walked away again. But this time, she looked back. Just once. Her eyes held not rage, but a reluctant vulnerability. Not a dismissal, not yet. The consistent presence. Adrian began to restructure his life around an unfamiliar energy. Consistency. He wasn't aiming for a strategy. He was aiming for presence. He showed up near the clinic every morning, not to confront, but simply to be there, to signal he wouldn't disappear. He left coffee on the steps with a note. No expectations, just trying. Sophia maintained her distance, offering only polite nods. But slowly, subtly, things shifted. She didn't pull Clara away when their eyes met. She stayed out a few seconds longer, pretending to check her phone. It was Clara who broke the wall first. One afternoon, she walked up to Adrian, who was pretending to read emails on a nearby bench. "Your shoes are very shiny," she stated seriously. "You think so?" He smiled. "Mama says shiny shoes mean someone is trying too hard." Adrian laughed. "She's not wrong." Clara tilted her head. "You're here a lot." "I suppose I am," he said. "Are you here for my mama?" "I'm here for both of you," he answered honestly. The next day, he brought hot chocolate, one for Clara, with extra cream, and one for Sophia, her name written on the lid. She didn't say thank you, but she took the drink. It was enough. He learned their rhythms. The days they went to the park, the days Sophia was exhausted. He never pushed. He simply made himself available. One damp Thursday, he offered to walk them to their car under an umbrella. As they walked, Clara asked if he had children. Adrian paused, then quietly, "Not that I know of." Sophia looked at him, her expression unreadable. Clara nodded. That's good. Then maybe you won't forget me. That simple phrase hammered home the truth. Clara was integrating him. She wanted to believe. And that realization made Adrian willing to fight harder than ever. The truth on the swings. The call came a few days later, the first time Sophia had called him in years. Can you meet us at the park? She asked, her voice steady. They met by the swings. Clara ran off to play, laughing. Sophia stood, arms crossed, waiting. I didn't call because I changed my mind, she said. I called because I need to understand what you're doing. I'm trying, he answered. Trying what exactly? To be in her life? Mine? To make yourself feel better? He took a deep breath. I don't need to feel better. I need to be accountable. I know I can't make up for 4 years, but I can be present for the next 4, and every year after that. Sophia watched Clara chase another child across the grass. She doesn't know you might be her father, she said, the words changing the air. I suspected, Adrian said softly. She was a baby when I left, Sophia whispered. And after what happened, I didn't trust you. I didn't want to fight. I just wanted to raise her in peace. I understand, but now, she hesitated. Now she's asking questions, and I won't lie to her. Adrian's heart constricted. What happens now? Sophia finally turned to him. I don't promise you anything, she said, fear and honesty mixed in her eyes. But if you really want to know her, if you are serious, then perhaps it's time we all stop pretending. He didn't speak. He just nodded, his jaw tight. This was the beginning of everything, and this time he wouldn't run. The scientific permission. The truth made the reality heavier. He had the science, but he still needed to earn the sense of belonging. Sophia allowed him in small, provisional doses. Weekend mornings at the park, quick dinners, the occasional drop-off at nursery school. She was testing him, and he accepted the caution he had earned. Clara, however, was immediately accepting. She drew pictures of the 3 of them, stick figures labeled Mama, me, and Adrian, always with a huge, crooked smile. She told her teacher that Adrian was her friend, who always comes back. One evening, Sophia invited him to a small school event, a family night. When Clara saw him, she ran and threw her arms around his waist. You came, she said, as if there was no doubt. Later, Adrian noticed Clara's drawing pinned to the board. 3 figures. The tallest one, with dark hair and blue dots for eyes, was simply labeled Adrian. Sophia joined him. She drew it without telling me. I didn't know she'd started putting your name down. I didn't ask her to, he said softly. I know, she replied. That's why it matters. Over a late-night coffee, after Clara had fallen asleep with her head on Sophia's shoulder, Sophia said, I think we should take the test. Adrian looked up. The paternity test, she clarified, her eyes fixed on her sleeping daughter. It's time. She will ask one day, and I want to give her the truth. Not a guess. Something real. He reached across the table and placed his hand over hers. Whatever the result, I'm not leaving. I know, she whispered. That's why I'm ready. The following week, the simple mouth swab was taken. Adrian felt like he was waiting for a life-altering verdict. When the envelope finally arrived, he drove straight to Sophia's flat. She handed him the paper, refusing to look. He tore the seal with trembling hands and read the result. Probability of paternity, 99.99%. His throat constricted and his eyes filled with tears. He's mine, he choked out. He always was, Sophia said softly. Clara looked up from her coloring. Are we going to celebrate now? She asked, smiling because her mother and Adrian were standing so close. Adrian knelt beside her and pulled her into his arms. Yes, he said, his voice thick. We absolutely are. In that moment, surrounded by crayons and soft yellow light, Adrian Hawthorne finally knew what it meant to have everything. Meaningful ending. The forever home. The paternity test granted Adrian permission, but his true effort earned him belonging. He didn't rush fatherhood. He integrated into their world in small, consistent ways. He helped with puzzles, read the same books 3 times, and eventually learned to braid Clara's hair, a feat that delighted her and softened Sophia. He was present for the hard days and the good days. He proved he was the man who came back and stayed. Then, one sunny Sunday at the botanical gardens, under a tree by the koi pond, Clara looked up at him. "You're my daddy, aren't you?" she asked. "Yes," Adrian said, tears welling up. "I'm your daddy." She simply nodded, content. "I thought so, okay." That night, on the sofa, Adrian held Sophia's hand. "I should have been here," he whispered, looking at photos of baby Clara. "You weren't ready," Sophia said simply. "You are here now." The seasons turned. The two of them slowly, quietly, moved back together. Not with an announcement, but with a toothbrush here, a drawer there, and Adrian's name added to the lease. One winter evening, they took Clara back to the botanical gardens, now illuminated with winter lanterns. Standing on the same bench, Adrian pulled a small, real, unassuming box from his coat. "I don't want a second chance," he said, looking into Sophia's eyes. "I want the rest of my life, the messy, tired, true life we are building together. Will you marry me?" Sophia didn't hesitate. She kissed him with a certainty that erased the last 4 years. "Yes," she whispered. Their small spring wedding was everything Adrian had once thought beneath him. No glitz, no society pages, just family and close friends. Clara, wearing a small white dress and a flower crown, walked down the aisle with her mother. Adrian waited, knowing he wasn't just marrying the woman he loved. He was finally, fully stepping into the life he was meant to have. As he held Sophia's hand after the ceremony, he understood the deepest truth. The greatest regret can be transformed into the greatest gift, but only through relentless, unyielding effort. He hadn't just regained a family, he had earned it, one consistent day at a time. The man who once craved control had found true power in vulnerability and unwavering presence. And that, he realized, was the only empire worth building. The Reckoning of Adrian Hawthorne. Chapter 5. The Teenager's Truth 10 years later. The Quiet Control. The London flat was no longer a sterile, hyper-controlled penthouse. It was a home. Sunlight streamed into the kitchen, illuminating dust motes and the chaos of a perfectly normal weekday morning. Adrian Hawthorne, now 48, was still the CEO of Hawthorne Capital, but his morning routine no longer started with stock reports. It began with burnt toast and the subtle, unpredictable energy of his 14-year-old daughter, Clara. He stood by the island, meticulously packing Clara's lunch, a task he performed with the same focus he once reserved for billion-dollar deals. He was a man who had mastered presence, not control. "Dad, I told you I only need half a sandwich," Clara said, leaning against the doorway, her dark hair a wild mess. Her eyes, still that striking crystalline blue, held the familiar blend of sharp observation and quiet intensity. "Nonsense. You're a growing woman. You need protein," Adrian countered smoothly, instinctively reverting to a mild form of the old control habit. "I need to breathe, Dad. It's too much," she sighed, exasperated. This was the new battlefield for the man who had conquered the financial world. Teenage boundaries. Sophia, walking in wearing her sensible nurse's uniform, gave Adrian a knowing look. "He's right, honey. Eat the sandwich. It's a compromise. You get the half, Dad gets the peace of mind." Clara managed a small smile. Their family wasn't defined by perfection. It was defined by effort and honest, imperfect love. The unforeseen variable. Later that day, Adrian's control was truly tested. He arrived home early from a board meeting, excited to review Clara's history essay. Sophia was already home, sitting on the sofa, looking uncharacteristically rigid. "We need to talk," Sophia said, her voice low. Adrian instantly felt the cold knot of fear, the familiar feeling of an unforeseen variable. "What is it? Is everything all right with Clara?" Sophia slowly handed him a crumpled piece of paper, a short, hastily written note in Clara's handwriting. "Mama, Papa, I just need some air. Don't worry, I'm at Lily's. Gomoit. I'll be back tonight. Please don't freak out." Adrian's breath hitched. His mind immediately leaped to the worst-case scenario, the financial damage, the legal risk, then corrected itself to the parental fear. What is she running from? "She's never done this before," Adrian said, pacing the rug. "Why didn't she tell us? Why a note? I told her she can talk to us about anything." Sophia rose and placed a hand on his shoulder, grounding him. "Because, Adrian, you make it very hard to talk. You try to fix everything. You try to control the narrative. I called Lily's mother. She's safe. But this isn't about safety. This is about trust and space." Adrian stopped. The truth was sharp. He had spent the last decade proving he was present. Now, his daughter was telling him his presence felt like pressure, the fear of repeating the past. They spent the next few hours sitting together, speaking softly, wrestling with their own histories. "When I left you," Sophia whispered, "I didn't trust you not to leave again. Now, Clara is testing if she can leave, and trust that we won't judge her or force her back into our controlled vision of her life." Adrian felt the familiar sting of the past. He had run away from the problem. Clara was running towards space. "I've been so focused on being present that I forgot to be open," Adrian admitted, his voice rough. "I missed her first 4 years, Sophia. I try to overcompensate. I want to build a perfect foundation so she never has to feel abandoned. But a perfect foundation doesn't allow for growth, Adrian," Sophia gently corrected. "It doesn't allow for the messy, contradictory feelings of a teenager. You can't control her journey. You can only trust the person you raised." Adrian looked at the note again. He saw the desperation in the crumpled paper, not the rebellion. He remembered his own desperate, silent retreat when his life became too much to handle. The unscripted conversation. Clara returned at 9 p.m., slipping quietly in the back door. She looked nervous, clutching her backpack tightly. Adrian was waiting for her in the living room, alone. He had strategically chosen the armchair, a neutral position. He had planned nothing, no script, no pre-rehearsed questions. This felt more terrifying than a corporate takeover. "Hi, Dad," Clara murmured, looking at the floor. "Hi, sweetheart," Adrian said, keeping his voice low and level. "We were worried, but we're glad you're safe." Silence. Adrian waited. He resisted the urge to ask why. What happened? I felt like I couldn't breathe," Clara finally confessed, tears pricking her eyes. "My essay got a B-, and I know you want me to do the debating team, and Mum wants me to apply to the hospital volunteer program, and I just want to sit in my room and draw. I felt like if I told you, you'd be disappointed." Adrian looked at his brilliant, sensitive daughter. He saw the mirror image of the pressure he had put on himself for decades. He stood up, walked over, and simply sat down beside her on the floor. He didn't hug her. He didn't try to fix it. "I am never, ever disappointed in you, Clara," he said softly, looking her straight in the eye. "I was disappointed in myself a long time ago. I want you to know that your B- is fine. Your debating team is fine. Your feelings are fine." He paused, gathering the courage to be truly vulnerable. "The hardest thing I ever had to learn, Clara, was that I don't control the things I love. I tried to control your mum, and I nearly lost her. I tried to control my business, and I lost my peace. I don't need you to be perfect for me to love you. I just need you to be honest. And you were honest tonight. You told us where you were." He looked at her, his expression utterly sincere. Thank you for trusting us enough to do that. Clara looked up, her relief palpable. She leaned into him, her head resting on his shoulder. I love you, Dad. I love you too, Clara. Meaningful ending. The new metrics of success. That night, Adrian didn't return to work. He sat with Sophia and Clara, watching a silly movie, his arm casually around his daughter. He understood that his journey from control to vulnerability was a continuous, daily process. It wasn't a destination. He realized his ultimate measure of success was no longer the numbers on a balance sheet, but the unforced, comfortable silence of his family sitting together. He had once believed that control was the key to stability. Now, he knew that trust, the messy, fragile, earned trust of a teenager and a wife who had once left him, was the only true foundation. He had built an empire in finance, but his greatest triumph was building a home where the most important rule was simple. You are free to leave, and we will still be here when you return. And that, Adrian knew, was a love worth fighting for every single day. The unwritten blueprint, the architects of trust, too. 2 years after the B- and the note incident, Adrian and Sophia stood in the lobby of the newly renovated Phoenix Institute headquarters in London. Clara, now 16, was happily engaged in a debate club meeting upstairs, a victory achieved not by parental pressure, but by finding her own space. Adrian was no longer merely a donor. He was the chairman of the Phoenix Foundation, the financial engine that funded Sophia's life-changing work. Sophia, now 45, was the Institute's global director, using her background in nursing and her deep emotional wisdom to counsel countless women. Their marriage, built on the slow, painstaking process of earning back trust, had become their masterpiece. It wasn't the passionate, reckless love of their youth, but a profound, resilient partnership forged in shared vulnerability. Remember when you thought you could control the Institute's budget with an algorithm? Sophia teased, adjusting her professional blazer. Adrian chuckled, a sound full of self-awareness. I still think a clear spreadsheet is a form of emotional hygiene, but I've learned that life runs on an entirely different metric. And what is that metric, Mr. Hawthorne? It's the daily choice to show up, even when you're scared. It's the silent trust that even if one of us leaves the room, we'll both be here when they come back. The echo of the past, that evening, they hosted a small, private fundraising dinner in their home. Among the guests were Robert Ainsworth, now Adrian's retired mentor, and Marina Rossi, Sophia's lifelong friend and legal powerhouse. During the dessert course, Robert raised a glass. To Adrian and Sophia, the couple who proved that a spectacular breakdown can lead to an even more spectacular build. Your foundation has saved thousands of lives. Marina, for direct, looked at Adrian. I honestly never thought I'd raise a glass to you, Adrian. The man who sat in my office years ago was a ghost of a person. What changed? Adrian looked at Sophia, his eyes conveying a decade of shared history. I learned that success isn't defined by what you accumulate. It's defined by what you refuse to lose again. He continued, speaking not as a CEO, but as a man who had faced true loss. When I lost Sophia, and didn't know I had Clara, I was operating under the belief that I was indispensable to my business and disposable to my family. The truth was the opposite. My greatest fear was that if I allowed myself to be vulnerable, I would be destroyed. But my daughter, Clara, showed me that my vulnerability is the only thing that makes me real to her. It allowed her to be imperfect too. That's a lesson worth more than my entire company. A new legacy, Sophia then spoke, adding her layer to their story. The betrayal hurt, but it was the control that suffocated. We now teach women at the Institute that their power isn't in escaping their husbands, but in reclaiming their narrative and their financial agency. And we're taking that message globally, Adrian interjected. We're launching the Blueprint for Presence initiative. It's an executive program for men, specifically high net worth men, who believe their value is their net worth. We teach them that consistent emotional presence is a better investment than any stock portfolio. Robert smiled. You're selling vulnerability to billionaires, Adrian. That's a genius move. No, Adrian corrected softly. I'm selling them their own lives back. Meaningful ending. The unwritten future. Late that night, after the guests had departed, Adrian and Sophia sat on their sofa, a quiet peace settling over them. You know, Sophia mused, leaning her head on his shoulder, Clara got her debating skills from you. She argued today that the greatest freedom isn't the absence of rules, but the choice of which rules to live by. Adrian kissed her hair. She's right. I spent my life living by the rules of finance. Now, I live by the rules of family, consistency, honesty, and grace. He picked up a book of sketches Clara had left on the coffee table. Inside was a vibrant drawing of a family, the three of them standing on a hill overlooking a city. In the corner, instead of a sun, Clara had drawn a tiny, ornate blueprint. Look at this, Adrian murmured. She knows. Sophia looked at the drawing, a soft, profound understanding in her eyes. She knows you're still the architect, Adrian, but now you're designing something much more lasting than a building. You're designing a forever. Adrian held the drawing close, the crumpled paper a far cry from the glossy reports of his old life, yet infinitely more valuable. He had lost everything to find out what truly mattered, and he knew, with unwavering certainty, that their unscripted, imperfect, and hard-earned life together was the most beautiful structure he would ever build.